teachings. Okay. And then if you have questions, you can ask after this. Please.
Rinpoche, we have a couple of questions. I'll read the question as it's written. Prostrate to Rinpoche, will you please teach us the pit on how we can control less dualistic of subject and object in order to avoid of less elaboration? Thank you, Rinpoche.
Oh yeah. So the dualistic apprehension or being tied to the dualistic ideas of the subject and object. Of course, in reality, there is a subject and there is an object. But to be, when we say the dualistic existence of the dualistic nature of an object and subject and object, we are referring to the fact, we are referring to the term the subject and object existing in its own reality, totally rooted in its own absolutism. The subject is no truer. The subject is no truer. The object is no truer than the subject that it is perceiving, and the subject is also the result of the object that it is conceiving or perceiving. One example is that, okay, let me tell you this way. Whatever you can hear or whatever you are hearing right now is because you let it pass through your ears, your mind, and so on and so forth. You let it pass through your gates of perception, the doors of perception, be it your ears, be it your eyes, be it your mind, so on and so forth. When you let it pass through, you can think of it, you can hear it, and on and so on and so forth. So if you stop thinking, if you stop any of these external events happening to pass through your sense organs or the perceptors, the doors to which they are susceptible, then you will not be able to hear them, you will not be able to think of them. To make things more clearer, you can only think of the things you think, and you think only the things that you can think of. The things that you cannot think of, you will never think of them. This proves that whatever you are thinking is enabled, whatever you are able to think, whatever you are thinking is created by your ability to think. So therefore, you can, even though the world exists, there are so many things happening in the world, only a small portion of that becomes the subject of your mind, the object of your mind, or the subject of your mind, of your knowledge, because this is the amount of knowledge that your brain or your mind can handle. So when you have an understanding of what I am saying, when you hear me through what your understanding, your abilities enable you to think of. So therefore, it is limited to what you hear from me is not subject to what I'm speaking, but to what you are capable of hearing. That's why we always have lots of misunderstanding in general in life. Things are misconstrued, things are misunderstood, and so on and so forth, because we understand everything from our own point of view through the capabilities that we possess. And so therefore, when we hear something, we hear the words differently, the meanings different, and so on and so forth. And so the point here is that the reason is things are not absolutely true externally as it is internally, and that goes vice versa. The mind is also a result of the object that it is perceiving. If there's no object to perceive for the mind, then the mind cannot exist, because the mind also needs something to chew on. The mind needs an object to focus. If there is no object at all, then the mind will also cease to exist. But at the same time, the object that is the object that is externally out there also needs to be validated by the mind. Without the mind, without the support of the mind, the object will also cease to exist. If no mind, if no mental perceptor perceives something to be what it is, then that object ceases to be what it is. For example, this is a mug. Because I think this is a mug, you think this is a mug. Lots of people in the world think this is a mug. Let's say nobody in the world, not just in this world, but nowhere, nobody thinks of this as a mug. No Buddhas, no Bodhisattvas, no gods, no human beings, nobody. Everyone ceases to see. Everyone stops seeing this as a mug. Then this object will cease. This object will stop being a mug, for sure. This object will maybe become something else. This object will be identified by some other name or some other thing, but this object will no longer be a mug. So the thing I'm trying to emphasize here is that object and subject exist only through interdependency, and so therefore, since they have this mutual reliance, they are not rooted in absolutism of their own, and so therefore dualistic. They are not dualistically existing. So dualistic understanding is that things do exist on its own, that the subject has a very truth of its own, and the object has a very truth of its own. But the reality is that both subject and object are mutually reliant, can only be mutually validated. Without one, the other cease to exist. It's like left and right. Subject and object are like left and right. Without left, there is no right. Without right, there is no left. So there is no absolute right, and there is no absolute left. What is the most right thing in the world? What is the most left thing in the world? There is no such thing. The left is left because of the right, and the right is right because of the left. So similarly, the subject is there because of the object, and the object is there because of the subject. So the existence of both subject and object are never absolute, are always changing, are always changing, and are never absolutely reliable in a sense. So that by thinking on these terms, one will be able to distance oneself from the let's say attachment or being close towards dualistic mindset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah.
Rinpoche, please explain more about the absence of the soul or anatma, soullessness. If so, when we say the Buddha, who do we refer to? Thank you, Rinpoche.
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a quite popular question in the. It's an argument made with when the Buddhist teachers, Buddhist masters, when they debated with the Hindu masters back in the day, they have this issue. So if the Buddha, if there's no soul, then who becomes a Buddha? That is a big question. For example, when ever since we were born, we have many experiences. We become many things. We want to. There was a time when we were just a toddler. We cannot walk. At that time, there are different things that we want, and then we become a child. We want different things. We want to become different things. We want to be different things. We want different things, and and at that time, we can walk on 2 feet, but we cannot run. But as we grow a little bit older, we become our teenage years. We can run faster. Our looks are different. Our thoughts are also different. Again, we have different needs, different wants, a different interest, and so on and so forth. Then, as we come into like maturity, into adulthood, our appearances also changes again. Become losing hair, getting big stomach, and getting more wrinkles, and so on and so forth. Appearance also change. Again, the mind also changes. What we need, what we wanted as kids, we no longer wanted them when we were when we become adults. We want different things. We have different interests, and so on and so forth. So all in that time, the I remained. We keep saying, for example, Tongkhor Rinpoche. So as a small kid, I am Tongkhor Rinpoche. I have different needs, different wants. As an adult, different needs, different wants, so on and so forth. The needs and wants and shapes and appearances, everything changes, but the person remains, so to speak. So if there is no soul, then where is that person? Who is the person? That question arises. So the Buddhist answer, the answer we give is that the stream of consciousness remains, even though the consciousness is constantly changing, but the stream is always there. The continuum of our consciousness is there. Our body is no longer there. The body that we have when we were kids is no longer there. If you look at your own picture, if you take a selfie, look at your own picture, and if you take a selfie and look at your picture right now, and if you compare that with the picture that maybe it was taken 20, 30, 40 years ago, it's completely different. You are no longer that person at all. Maybe someone who knows you can say, oh, that is you, recognize you, but somebody who has not will not be able to identify you with the person 30, 40 years ago. And the same goes with your mindset and everything. Everything changes. But what remains is the continuum of the mind. The continuation of that body is still there. Even the body has changed tremendously, but the continuation is there. From yesterday to today, the body has changed. Yesterday you are well, today you are stomach upset. Today you are you have stomach upset, tomorrow you get better. So the body is changing constantly. This morning you are hungry, after breakfast you are no longer hungry. Constantly changing, but the continuum of the body is there, the continuation of the body. So there's some truth in what we say in sometimes we say in English, the change is the only constant. I don't know who actually said that, but there's a saying in English, change is the only constant thing in the universe. So the change or the continuation or the stream of continuation of what has been always is there. So what becomes the Buddha is the stream of your consciousness. Your consciousness is also changing tremendously every moment. Every time you have a negative thought, that even though the consciousness does not become a negative consciousness, it aligns with the negative thought. When you have a positive thought, the consciousness aligns with the positive thought, and so on and so forth. The shapes, the curves of the consciousness is always changing, but the continuation, the continuum of the consciousness remains, and this is what goes to Buddhahood. Okay, that's it. I think. Any more?
No more questions today, Rinpoche. That's all for today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Yes.